Okay, this section is on bacteria and viruses. Now, we're going to start with bacteria first because prokaryotic life had to begin before you could have a virus infecting a life form. So in this recording, I'm going to be pointing with my pointer to the line, and I will tell you the word that goes into that proper line in your notes. This first check mark is the word prokaryotic cells. So prokaryotic is capital P R O K A R Y O T I C. Prokaryotic cells. The second check mark, do not contain a nucleus. So the words do not go in the blank. And as you can see in this picture here, you have genetic material, there's DNA, but there is no nucleus in this cell because it is prokaryotic and it is simple. It doesn't have one. Now, plasmids are also a review. They are used in genetic, goes in the blank. So they are used in genetic engineering. And we use them to insert human genes to make products. And the example you have to know for your EOC goes in this blank, and that is the word insulin. I-N-S-U-L-I-N. So we can take this bacterial cell here, we can insert human DNA into this bacteria through a plasmid, which is right here. The plasmid is this green structure here. And that means when we do that, that cell is genetically engineered and it will produce human insulin every day of its life, and so will all of its babies. And this is the way we currently make insulin. So people who are diabetics and they need insulin, this is what they take. Bacteria also have ribosomes. Ribosomes, do you remember, they are responsible for blank synthesis. Hopefully you thought of the word protein. So that is what goes in this blank. So ribosomes are responsible for protein synthesis. We now know that ribosomes, after having the DNA test, are also called little r RNA. So in this blank goes the letter lowercase r. And bacteria, of course, are microscopic. We can't see them without the aid of a very powerful microscope. So all of this here is a review. You've had it in Chapter 7 and in the DNA chapter, which was 2 tests ago. The next topic, bacterial classification. There are 2 kingdoms of bacteria, and we learned about kingdoms on the test you took today. The 2 bacterial kingdoms are eubacteria and archaebacteria. We have added another group that is above the kingdom. It's an even bigger group, and it's called a domain. And the kingdom eubacteria are found in domain bacteria, whereas kingdom archaebacteria are found in domain archae. And the reason for this is that we know because of DNA analysis that things are organized a little bit differently than what we thought. So we've created another category to help us group them. Now, the domain bacteria, kingdom eubacteria, they live everywhere. They're in your mouth right now. They are on your skin. They are in the soil outside. We know now that these are the simplest of prokaryotic cells. They have only 27% of their DNA in common with us. So it's a very, very small number. Examples of this bacteria are if you've ever had strep throat or a staph infection or a wound that has an infection, that is also a bacterial infection. The domain archaebacteria, which is kingdom archaebacteria, they live in very strange places. They live in lava, the Dead Sea, and they are in your intestines. And the main bacteria that lives in our intestines in this group is called E. coli. You may have heard of that before. It causes food poisoning if the meat was not cut properly. And based on evolution, we now know that these archaebacteria, even though they're named as an ancient bacteria, we know that they are actually more advanced because they have 47% similar DNA compared to us, whereas the domain bacteria only have 27. Now, uses of bacteria. This is all new to you. First of all, we mix bacteria with milk to make cheese. The whole in Swiss cheese over here is made by the gas that the bacteria produces, and that's what makes the whole. What gives you Swiss cheese versus American versus cheddar is which species of cheese you use, which species of bacteria you use to make the cheese. We also use bacteria to make alcoholic drinks. Our beer, wine, liquor, and even foods like sauerkraut and pickles are also used. We use them to make those foods as well. Another important thing, which this one is completely new, is a nitrogen-fixing bacteria. And this is a cartoon, and you have these little lumps here, and these lumps on the roots of these plants are nodules where nitrogen-fixing bacteria live. They take the nitrogen in from the soil, they turn it into DNA, RNA, and proteins. In return, those DNA, RNA, and proteins are given to the plant so the plant can make its own DNA, RNA, and proteins. And the plant gives these nitrogen-fixing bacteria all the food from photosynthesis that they want. So bacteria, the nitrogen-fixing bacteria, they're the only organisms on Earth that can use nitrogen from the soil. No other life form can use it. We get the nitrogen for our DNA and proteins from the food we eat, from those plants. And the plants get it from the bacteria on their roots. Viruses. Viruses in this first blank are not alive. They do not have a metabolism. Viruses do not eat, they do not make energy, they don't make waste, but they do evolve very quickly. There are over 30 different strains or kinds of HIV or the AIDS virus because they evolve very, very quickly. They cause some disease immediately. Someone sneezes on you and the next morning you're sick. That would be the flu and the common cold. Our immune systems will memorize how to fight off the viruses and the flus and the common cold so that if you get it again, you're not sick as long. The problem is there's 500 different kinds of the flu, and there's over 600 kinds of the common cold. So you can actually get the common cold 600 times and never get the same one twice. But once you do get one, and if you get it again, you don't get nearly as sick. Some viruses cause lifelong diseases such as AIDS and hepatitis C. So AIDS, once you're HIV positive, you're going to have AIDS forever. And same thing with hepatitis C. That is different than hepatitis A or B. So there's 3 different kinds of hepatitis. C is the one that you have for life. If you have one of these lifelong diseases, then you will alternate from being well, goes in this blank, so you may be well for a year or 5 years, and then all of a sudden you get sick. And you may be sick for a year, and then you get well again, and you're well for 6 months this time, and then you go back and get sick. So people with AIDS and hepatitis C, they're going to go from being healthy and wonderful to being very, very sick for the rest of their lives. Now, this is a very cool diagram. This is how we use biotechnology to help fight disease. This is a transgenic virus. This is the flu virus. We have taken out the DNA for the flu, and we've inserted the correctic cystic fibrosis gene. We could get that gene from any one of us, a cotton swab on the inside of our cheek, and we could donate that healthy gene. So with the healthy gene, They have people go to Vidant Medical Center right here in Pitt County, and they inhale these genetically engineered viruses. And the way this works, the virus gets immediately taken into the cell, and the DNA gets injected into this little brown thing here, which is our nucleus, and poof, the cell is healed. This is why cystic fibrosis patients are now living to the age of 35 instead of dying at 18, which is what it used to be. Now, there are vaccines are also something that you have to know. Vaccines are made up of viral parts or proteins. So if you get the flu vaccine, you actually get the protein that is right here, this little red thingy sticking out of this virus. It's a protein. And we give a person that protein only. We don't give them the rest of the virus. They don't get the DNA from the virus. They just get the protein. And what that does is the purpose here, when you get a vaccine, it helps you memorize how to fight the disease so you don't get sick. So that's the purpose. It helps you memorize the disease so you don't get sick. For example, all of us have had MMR vaccine, which is our measles, mumps, and rubella. None of us ever have to worry about getting these because we've had the vaccine, so our bodies already know how to fight it. Can you think of any other vaccines that you have that I haven't? For example, have y'all gotten the chickenpox vaccine? It wasn't around when I got the chickenpox, but you guys, you can't get it because most of y'all have probably had the shot. So you can write here, chickenpox, right here. Some of you may have also had the Gardasil vaccine, which keeps you from getting HPV, which is a type of virus that comes from sexually transmitted diseases. It's called genital warts. And if you've had the Gardasil vaccine, then you don't have to worry about that because you have the vaccine. So vaccines help us keep from getting diseases later on in our lives. There are such things as called superbugs. These are viruses or bacteria that medicines can't treat. And we've talked about this in your evolution test today. So this is why we don't want to give antibiotics every time someone gets sick, because you could evolve viruses that become drug resistant. And the example of some drug resistant superbugs right now, AIDS, SARS, and H1N1 are older. H1N1 was a couple of years ago. It's also called the swine flu. And women that were pregnant were rushed to the doctor's offices to get this vaccine to help keep their unborn babies from dying. So these diseases or superbugs pop up all the time. But normally we get them under control because we now know what to do with them. So this is all you needed to know for viruses and bacteria. This will hopefully help the group that's doing virus and bacteria for your projects. This will help you get a head start on that.